Greetings, and welcome to the Bowling Green First United Methodist Church. We hope that you enjoy what you're about to see, and you can find us on the corner of Broadway and Church Streets at 11 o'clock on Sunday mornings. Or you can find us at bgmethodist.org and on Facebook at Bowling Green First United Methodist Church. So we started out last week on the book of Ruth, and you remember kind of where Ruth starts. You've got Ruth and Naomi are two of the main characters. Naomi is the mother-in-law. She was married to a man who passed away. She had 2 sons and 2 daughters-in-law. Her 2 sons passed away, and they were in the land of Moab. And so when that happened, Naomi said to her daughters-in-law, said, "Go back to your homes. I can't take care of you. I love you, but they can take care of you." One of her daughters-in-law said, "Okay." She went back to her home. There were no right or wrong decisions in here. There were just the decisions you could make. And so she chose to go back to her family. But Ruth said to Naomi, she said, "Nope, I'm going to go with you. Where you go, I go. Where you live, I'll live. Your people will be my people. Your God will be my God." And so they returned back to Naomi's homeland, which of course was Israel, or probably the king, would have been Israel. And so they returned back to her home. And so they get back to her home, and they kind of get settled, and Ruth now is going out into the fields to work and to glean from the fields. And gleaning is that process where the main harvest goes through, and the people who glean come after and pick up everything that was left. And so they were out there, and that's where our story picked up today, and they were in the field of Boaz, who is one of Naomi's relatives. And so that's kind of where our story picks up today in chapter 2. Now, as we look at this story, we look at where we're going, in today's world there is this persistent myth that's out there, this myth of the individual, that says we put all of our trust in ourselves because we can do better than anyone else can. It says if I can just work hard enough, then I can make it. If everyone would just get out of my way, I wouldn't have any trouble. And it says I know better than other people because I have seen that for myself and I know how that works. We can boil that down into about 3 things. Work hard, get out of my way, and I know better. That's kind of the basis of this persistent myth of the individual. That really is something that is kind of new in terms of our human history and knowledge and understanding that puts ourselves at the center of things and says that, I am the person that I put my trust in. But we all know that just working hard isn't enough a lot of times. Because what do we say about some folks who we know are hard workers, but they can't catch a break, right? Sometimes we have to have that lucky break in order to be able to take that next step. To get out of the place where we are, for good or bad, to take that next step, we've got to catch that break. And I have said, sometimes this is true. Sometimes we just need folks to leave us alone so we can get work done. But a lot of the time we say, well, if folks would just get out of my way, I can handle this. That doesn't really work because we all need people. And if we don't have people around us, sometimes we can't actually do our work to begin with. We can't just do things on our own. We rely on and we need others to help us do it, to help us get things done. And then the last one is probably my favorite, though, that says, I know better. Where we think that because we have direct experience with something, that we know better. We even know what we call this common sense. And then we joke around and we say, well, common sense isn't always all that common sometimes. And there's a reason for that. Because sometimes our common sense really isn't all that common. It just is our experience that we have. And sometimes it can lead us into the wrong places or to making wrong decisions because we assume that we know everything that we need to know to make a decision, but we don't always know that. We don't always have that. We need more than just ourselves. We need other people to help us out many different times. More people help us to overcome our weakness. They introduce us to a larger world that makes us stronger, and they help us to see more clearly so we can make better decisions. Now, the first group of people that we are ever introduced to as we come into this world, the first group of people we're introduced to is our family. They're the first ones that we get to know, that we're a part of, that we learn to rely on. They help define who we are. And that's what we see in Ruth's story, that she is discovering today. Even though she's not related by blood to Boaz, he takes her, he extends his family out and says, well, she's a part of my family, and he is working to help her out. And it's also what we're going to see as, last week as we started this, I said, Ruth's story is good, but sometimes we tell stories in there in a context we aren't familiar with, and so we've also we're telling a parallel story to that tells this same sort of story, but in kind of a more up-to-date context for us. And this is we're calling this the book of Rudy. If you remember, Rudy is an adopted kid who doesn't know his family, who loses his adopted mother, and then loses his adopted father, and now is trying to figure out what to do with his adopted stepmother. There is a complicated family relationship right there. Your adopted stepmother. All sorts of complications are coming from this, and they're trying to figure out what to do. Remember at the end of the story, at the end of chapter 1, we said that Rudy looks over at his adopted stepmother. Her name is Amy, it's short for Naomi, and tells her, I will go with you so that we can get back on our feet together. Even though he had some other options that he could do, he chooses to go back with her. So now today we're catching up on chapter 2. This is the book of Rudy, chapter 2. Rudy graduated from high school, and the next day he and Amy left to go back to her hometown. This was going to be a new experience for him. Amy was from a small town, and Rudy had only ever known the city. They got to her home, and Amy knew of a small place that they could rent. It wasn't much. It had seen better days, but it was a place where they could start. Rudy was ready to start looking for work, and Amy was going to make sure they had what they needed, and then she was going to start looking for work too. Rudy didn't know where to start, and it had been a while, but Amy said, well, try these places and see what you can find. So that morning came, and Rudy had started putting in applications at different places, and he was making his next stop, and he knew that it might take a while, even to find just a summer job. But then he stopped at a construction company that was needing help. Rudy told him, he said, I don't have the experience in construction, but the foreman told him that there was plenty that needed to be done that didn't need much experience. And he asked him, when can you start? Rudy said, I can start today. And so the foreman brought him on. Rudy called Amy, let her know where he was, and then he was off. As the day progressed, the foreman was quite happy with Rudy. He was a hard worker. He was very easy to work with. And then the owner of the company stopped by the job site and noticed Rudy. He asked the foreman about him, and he couldn't say enough. He told the owner what he knew of Rudy's story, at least that he had just moved to town with his stepmother, he was out looking for a job, and that he'd been working on the job site doing the grunt work that everyone hates, but he hadn't complained, and he was doing very good work. The owner, whose name is Aaron, had a suspicion about who Rudy is. He thought he looked familiar from somewhere, but he wanted to check a couple of things out first. Later in the day, Aaron returned to the job site, and he saw that Rudy was still hard at work. He looked over at the foreman, who told him that he hadn't slowed down much, and he was proving to be a big help. Aaron motioned Rudy to come over, and he looked important, so Rudy came over. And Aaron introduced himself and asked Rudy if he was Naomi's stepson. Rudy was surprised to be asked that, but then Rudy had never lived in a small town. He said that he is, and Aaron told him that Naomi is his cousin. And that he had heard about what Rudy had done, that he'd chosen to stay with his cousin and come home and work to start over with her. And Aaron told him that he was proud of him. Then he looked over at the foreman and told him that if he wants it, Rudy has a job all summer. And in private, Aaron filled the foreman in on what had happened, and he bumped Rudy's pay up a little bit so that Rudy and his cousin could get back on their feet just a little bit better. That night, when Rudy got back to their place, Amy asked him how his day went, and he told her about it, that he'd met her cousin Aaron. And Amy told him that it had been years since they had last seen each other, but she knew he was a good man and a good businessman. Rudy told her that he'd offered him a job for the rest of the summer, and Amy wasn't surprised by that. She knew Aaron would take care of Rudy, even though they hadn't seen each other in years. He cares for his family and will do what he can to help them out, especially in times of trouble. There's chapter 2. And so we see kind of how that family relation begins to work itself out and their desire to care for one another. And this comes from this idea that we find in ancient Jewish culture where they really had formalized this. And we see this in verse 20 of chapter 2 where Naomi is telling Ruth about how all of this works. Describing who Boaz is and what he's doing. And so Naomi says to her daughter-in-law Ruth, says, "May he be blessed by the Lord who hasn't abandoned his faithfulness with the living or with the dead." Naomi said to her, "The man is one of our close relatives. He's one of our redeemers." A redeemer in this case is someone who is a male, a head of household, and he is responsible for widows and for other women who are a part of his house that don't have a husband, a father, a brother, or uncle, or any other sort of male head of house. He then is responsible for them. They have formalized this setup so that they all know what their role is in this whole thing. But the basic concept of this is one that we can understand. The basic concept is that family takes care of family. And that's just what they do. Family can make defining moments for us. They shape our world many times in ways that we can't shape it for ourselves. They're the ones that provide that next bit that we need in order to find our place as we go from day to day. This is what Ruth is discovering. Even though she is not related by blood to Boaz, she is discovering what this means when there's going to be someone there who's going to say, "I will help you." That's part of my job. That's part of my responsibility because you are my family. And Rudy also is discovering this as we are telling his story as we go along the way. And so the question for us becomes this: who is our family? Now, it used to be that families were defined solely by their blood relation or some sort of legal relationship. You marry into the family. That was how family was defined. But we don't exactly have a lot of families like that anymore. We do around here. I mean, you all know folks that have got families and they know all their cousins and second cousins and third cousins and fourth cousins twice removed. And, I get confused after a while about how all those relations work. But you all know some folks like that. But the way the world has kind of moved on in the last 100 years or so is that that's not the norm anymore. The norm is this thing that developed that we call the nuclear family. It's 2 parents, 2 kids, it's 2 parents, 2.5 kids, because averages work out there. I always felt sorry for that 0.5 of a kid in there. They have a cat, a dog, a goldfish, and probably a gerbil somewhere that's running around that got let loose at one point. They can't find it anymore. Hopefully it's not the snake. They're out running around. You live in the nice house, the white picket fence. It's tied inexorably to the American dream. And that's the family. Now there's extended family, grandparents, aunts, uncles, and that sort of thing that a lot of times you see on holidays, the big holidays. You see more often at maybe a family reunion, but probably weddings and funerals. Maybe today it's a little bit easier because we stay in contact through Facebook or email or texting or whatever other way we use to communicate. But there's these big differences there that are very different from the way that things used to be. And with that development, we lost one of our really big supports. But we have found ways to compensate. Now we have many more families by choice. These new families are made up of friends that we choose, the ones that we are close to no matter what, no matter how long it's been since we have talked the last time or since we've seen each other. We can pick that relationship up right back where it left off, and we know we can ask each other for anything. We have built families together with our own choice. These are the new kinds of families that have begun to develop. And so our question is, what is our responsibility to our family, whether we are related or it's a family by choice? What is our responsibility? And what we see from our stories we've been telling is that it's to do what's best for them, do what's best for our other family members, in return to expect that back also, that they do what is best for us. We see this with Boaz and with Aaron. They are family, and that family's been extended out to include someone who has no other relation to them, but it's been extended out, and they have brought those folks into the family. And they are providing what is best for them. Sometimes that is material things, that someone just needs something, and you help provide that. But more often than not, it's providing what someone needs in the form of helping them find stability and opportunity to be able to move beyond this. This is what we see with Ruth and with Rudy. What they really needed was work, was a job, was the ability to kind of get their feet back under them and get settled and to be able to begin making some progress. That's why we see in our reading that Boaz is so careful to say to all of his other workers, saying, she doesn't know, she's not from around here, she doesn't know how things work. Watch out for her and help her out a little bit where you can so that she can get on her feet. And it's where we see Aaron in the story telling the foreman, saying, we're going to bump his pay up a little bit. They're trying to get back on their feet. He's a hard worker. He's a good kid. We're going to help him kind of get settled back in so they can find stability and opportunity to go forward. And this is also the message that we see that Jesus teaches so often. It's the message that we see his first followers beginning to live out. For them, it was a very different sort of setting. They took care of one another. They provided stability and opportunity for their larger group of folks that were gathered around. They did all of this in a communal setting where they shared everything. That's not exactly the way we do things now, but there are still ways that we can do when we can help others that are a part of our family provide stability and opportunity. So our challenge for us is to do this week, is to go out and look at our family and look and see where they are and how things are going, and to say, what can I do to help someone who's struggling and help them find that stability they need and help them to find the opportunity they need to begin making that progress. To look back also in our own lives and see when others have done that for us. Because this is the thing about being human, is at some point we all hit hard times and we all need help. Look and see where others have done that same thing for us. And see, and most importantly through all of this, is to see where God is at work, how he's been moving things around, and helping us to reach out and help others, or helping others to reach out and help us, to see that he has been at work all the way through, and to see where he is going to lead us to do even more of that work as we go forward. Let us do all of this in Christ's name.